Hello everyone, this is Philip Jonas at Kalamazoo Valley Community College presenting OpenStax Principles of Economics. And today we're covering section 3.1, Demand, Supply and Equilibrium in Markets for Goods and Services. In this module, you will learn to explain demand, quantity demanded and the law of demand, explain supply, quantity supplied and the law of supply, identify a demand curve and a supply curve, and explain equilibrium, equilibrium price, and equilibrium quantity. Supply and demand is one of the fundamental models we use in microeconomics. Let me start out by explaining the demand for a product. The demand for a product represents the buyers of a product. The rule of thumb is the person who's paying in a market ends up being represented by the demand curve. Now, in economics, we do use these terms in a very specific way that might be subtly different from ordinary English. For example, the demand refers to how many units, what quantity buyers will buy at any given price point. So when we use the term demand, really we're talking about an entire relationship that might be represented by a table, a graph, or even an equation. Price goes in, quantity comes out. On the other hand, we use the term quantity demanded to refer to a specific number of units that happens at one price point. I will highlight that difference as we look at the table and graph versions of the demand for a product. And while we're at it, keep an eye out for the law of demand. This is a very common relationship where if the price for a product goes up, the quantity demanded decreases, and vice versa, of course. Let us start out by looking at the demand for a product using the example of a table. This is referred to as a demand schedule. So right now, for example, you're looking at different prices of gasoline, how many units of gasoline in millions of gallons might be purchased at each of those price points. So the first thing we're going to look here for is our old friend, the law of demand. Notice in this example, as the price of gasoline increases, we end up with a lower quantity demanded. So that's absolutely in line with the law of demand. Now notice how I said, as the price goes up, we see a lower quantity demanded. As an economist, at least within the context of economics, I would not say that an increased price results in a lower demand for the product, which sounds a little unusual, but what's going on here is that if we use the term demand, we are referring to the entire relationship, the entire table, if you will. And of course, just because the price of the gas changes doesn't mean that the table itself has changed. We're just moving to a different row, a different quantity demanded within that table. We reserve the term the demand for gasoline has changed for situations where we end up with new numbers at each price points. So for example, if battery electric vehicles become very popular, it's entirely possible that even if the price is unchanged, we have a lower quantity demanded, meaning we have to rewrite this entire table. This is a demand schedule. Even more commonly, we are going to look at the demand for products using a demand curve, which is a graphical representation of more or less the same information. Let's start out by having a look at the axes here. The standard method of plotting a demand curve is that we put the price of the product on the y-axis and the quantity on the x-axis. Now, if you're really into math, that might strike you as a little bit unusual. I mean, if demand is a function, price goes in, quantity demanded comes out. Normally, when we graph functions, we put our input variables on the x-axis, our output variables on the y-axis, and this seems to be sort of the other way around. So Sorry about that. That's been a convention in economics for well over a century now, and we're not about to change it. For the most part, there are no big consequences to the fact that our input variable is on the y-axis, except perhaps in a future module when we look at increases or decreases in the demand curve. So let's get back to the gasoline information from the previous table. Each row of that table can of course be represented as one point in our coordinate system. So for example, here is $2.20, 420 million gallons. We've got a point has two coordinates, price coordinate, quantity coordinate. That's a whole row of the table. And as we go down this table, each row can be represented as a point. Here's our next point. Here are all 7 rows of our table. Strictly speaking, these points are the only information we're getting out of our demand schedule, but we're not going to be operating on a bunch of points here, but rather we end up connecting these points into what's called a demand curve. There are rigorous methods to do these connections, something you might learn about in a statistics course, but we'll just connect the dots using straight lines. So let me repeat the terminology that we are covering here one more time. This entire line here is what we refer to as the demand for a product. If the price of the product changes, let's say from 180 to 160, we are moving along this line, which means the quantity demanded will change. We'll have a new number down here on the x-axis, but we wouldn't say that the demand itself has changed. We're going to reserve that for a situation where the curve itself is moving to a different location. So that's the demand for a product. On the other side of those market transactions, we have the supply representing the sellers of a product. Rule of thumb, whoever is getting paid in a market, they are represented by the supply curve. Very similar terminology is at work here. The supply refers to the entire relationship. Price goes in, quantity supplied comes out. Quantity supplied refers to one specific number of units sellers wish to sell at a given price point. And we observe a common relationship called the law of supply, that if the price of a product increases, sellers wish to sell more units of that product. So let's go ahead and have a look at the supply first in table form, referred to as a supply schedule. We'll stick with the same product here. So notice we've got our price points for gasoline, but as those price points increase, the quantity supplied also increases. So we've got a direct relationship here, price up, quantity supplied up, as opposed to the inverse relationship with demand, price up, quantity demanded down. Let's go ahead and graph this as a supply curve as well. Same coordinate system as before, price on the y-axis, quantity on the x-axis, and let's go ahead and draw in some dots. So here's our top row of the table, $1, 500 million gallons. Second row, higher price, higher quantity. And then if we draw in all 7 rows, we can represent that as 7 dots. Let's go ahead and connect those dots into what's called a supply curve. The entire supply curve is the supply of a product. If, on the other hand, we're talking about a specific number of gallons of gasoline at a specific price point, that will be referred to as the quantity supplied. So this is demand and supply in isolation. Of course, the magic of this model results when we combine the supply and demand of a product. So first, in schedule form, we are lining up our quantities demanded and supplied on the same price points here. You can already tell there's one row here that's going to be a little bit special. Look at $1.40. That's the only row where the quantity demanded and the quantity supplied is the same number, 600 million gallons. So that's going to be really important for us. It's referred to as the equilibrium of that market. Let's go ahead and look at that graphically as well. So here are our supply and demand curves from just a moment ago. Where's the spot where the quantities are equal? Well, X marks the spot, nice and easy to identify. Again, that's referred to as the equilibrium of that market. Now, the equilibrium is a point shared on the supply and the demand curve. And just like any point, it's representing two coordinates. So we might refer to it as the equilibrium for the point itself. But let's say we want to talk about the price associated with that specifically. We'd call that the equilibrium price. And likewise down on the x-axis, you guessed it, we've got the equilibrium quantity, which is of course shorthand for two numbers. At this price point, the equilibrium quantity is both the quantity supplied and the quantity demanded. In fact, that's the technical definition of an equilibrium, that those two quantities are equal to one another. Now, this equilibrium forms the central prediction of the model of demand and supply. If nothing unusual is going on, we would expect this market to tend towards its equilibrium price and quantity. Now, on some level, that's probably intuitively appealing, but let's talk about why markets tend towards this point. And I think the easiest way to talk about that is to ask ourselves, well, what if the market isn't in equilibrium? What if, for example, the price of the product is all the way up at $1.80? So economics is a social science. Weird stuff can happen, but this sort of price is not going to be very stable. Because let's have a look at the resulting quantities. First, we look on the supply curve. So here at $1.80, we're seeing a quantity of 680 million gallons. On the other hand, we check the same price over on our demand curve, we find a much smaller quantity, only 500 million gallons. So what this represents is that we've got sellers with 680 million gallons of gasoline that they would like to sell at a price point of $1.80, but buyers are only willing to buy 500 of them. That is not an equilibrium. This is referred to as a surplus of a product, or sometimes excess supply. And as you probably know from your own experience, a market in surplus tends to not be stable. We have sellers unable to sell some of the units they would like to sell. And we are going to expect that they are going to start cutting price to get a sale rather than no sale. So let's go ahead and think about this. If those sellers cut the price, law of supply says quantity supplied decreases. Law of demand says quantity demanded increases, and we are going to see that surplus gets squeezed from both sides and gets smaller, but it's not fully eliminated. The downward pressure on price is not gone until we are down at the equilibrium condition. A very similar story can be told if we are below the equilibrium price. So once again, let's say gasoline's currently at $1.20. Let's go ahead and check our supply curve. Sellers want to sell fewer than the equilibrium quantity of 600 million gallons. Buyers want to buy more than the equilibrium quantity of 600 gallons. Again, an imbalance in the market. This type of imbalance is referred to as a shortage of a product, or sometimes excess demand. Again, markets in shortage do not tend to be stable. There's a big incentive for those prices to go up since you've got more buyers, then you've got product anyway. And as prices climb, quantity supplied increases, quantity demanded decreases until we are back in our equilibrium condition. Again, forming the central prediction of the model of supply and demand. Now, of course, you might already be thinking about situations in real life where shortages or surpluses do not seem to go away by themselves. We are absolutely going to talk about that down the line, but as you learn more about the model of demand and supply, when you see shortages or surpluses in real life, your mind will start going towards, so why isn't that market adjusting in the way it should? And there is a number of scenarios that could prevent the adjustment. But reaching equilibrium should certainly be our default expectation unless one of these barriers is in place. That concludes our discussion of Module 3.1. In this module, you learned how to explain demand, quantity demanded, and the law of demand, supply, quantity supplied, and the law of supply, how to identify a demand curve and a supply curve, and how to explain the equilibrium, equilibrium price, and equilibrium quantity. I will see you next time.